We're gonna dyno this car to see if an upgraded intake is gonna make any more power. Factory intakes on cars can be restrictive. VW and Audi puts additional baffling inside the intake track to reduce engine noise. Then they put a speaker inside your cowl to make simulated engine noises. Since we all like more power and more engine noises, we are going to install this Racingline R600 Intake on our Mark 8. We also are going to be partnering with Racingline to give away 2 of these. All you have to do to enter is comment on the YouTube video below and you'll be entered to win. We will announce the winners by replying to your comment from our official channel. The last giveaway we did, we had a bunch of shitbags who were trying to scam people out of money, and we're doing it from fake accounts that were simulating our account. Don't get scammed. Now I know you're probably wondering, does an intake make more power and will it actually flow more? Well, there was a Mark 7 guy who was crazy enough to do bench flow testing on a variety of intakes, and we'll link to his website in the description below where you can check that out. But he did find R600 intakes came up near the top of the heap. If you need an intake for your car, Mark 8 or otherwise, check out our website shop.dynoed.com and you can get Racingline products and a variety of other things. Before we install this intake, let's give you the before and after noises you so desperately crave. Before. After. Before. After. Now that we've checked out the sound difference, we're going to go to a dyno and see if there's a power difference. Our before numbers for our stock intake with the turbo inlet: 342 pound-foot of torque, 291 horsepower. That's before. Now we put our intake on. Let's see what we do. After intake install, 0 pound-foot of torque, about 12 horsepower at the wheels. Keep in mind, these are not crank rated numbers. That's at the wheels, 12 horsepower.
Are we doing it again?
We can do another one. Wow, I didn't expect that. 10 pound-foot of torque additional, and about the same in terms of horsepower. It went down like less than 1 horsepower. So when we look across this dyno graph, you can see we did 2 runs. Interesting thing that you can look at here in the graph. So where we got that additional 10 pound-foot of torque, the red line is actually the torque. So the red line you can see shoots up and over and then kind of comes back down, whereas the green line, which was the second run, kind of goes up and then is flat across. So it doesn't have that same spike. So the torque gain, it's kind of a cosmetic number in terms of its actual gain overall. You will see as you look across these lines, the red is above the green in some spots, and the main key is that you look at is that it's always the red and the green are always above the blue. So what you are gaining with an intake is performance benefits. Now the peak numbers are gonna vary a little bit. You can see by that run, it's like, hey, we got 10 pound-foot of torque additional, which means it's gonna come on strong and then kind of have a similar curve as you go. Which means I would expect to see when you get an intake, you're gonna free up your intake track. It's gonna put less load on your turbo and have freer flowing air as you come through, which is gonna kind of translate to benefits across the power band, not just in one specific spot as we saw with, you know, kind of these spikes here and there. So there are the results. It sounds better, it makes more power. Now I'm gonna show you how to install it. Look at that. Would you just look at it? And this is our filter and the other items. This hose. These hoses are not loyal. This filter that's a pretty impressive filter, right? I like that. Now this is the cotton filter. There's different versions of this filter. There's also the foam version of this filter, which is slightly less expensive. Now, I recommend going with the cotton version, but you could go with whichever version you want to. Now inside our box, we got these grommets. They gotta go on the bottom of that guy. And then we have screws, a bunch of them. Now for these grommets, you're gonna flip this baby over and just pop them in like they're hot. Okay, now I'm on the struggle bus here. I'm going in dry. This whole time, I'm going in dry. Gotta lube them both together. Now that I've lubricated properly, we're no longer gonna go in dry here. That made this kind of a squish noise. I'm not gonna describe what that also sounds like, but this one was less lubed because I just kind of used the lube from the other one. I just rubbed the two together. So it's not quite as lubricated. The shocker that it's not going in. There we go. I just had to pull it from the other side. Didn't even need to lube it anymore. We're going to remove our airbox first. This starts over here at the secondary air clip. If you have a Golf R, you don't have one of these, but you just squeeze it and then wiggle it like that. Next, we're going to take this vacuum hose off. This has been off this car before, so it just slides off real easy. Now, we have the Racingline turbo inlet and the hose. We're going to start by loosening this clamp. If you don't have this clamp, you have a spring clamp, which you're going to need pliers for, which we can link in the description of this video. We're going to pop this intake up. It has grommets that hold it in place that we just popped into the other intake. We're just going to pull up here on the back side and pop it off. Now we're just going to rotate it up like that and pull it out. Now we're going to remove this hose, and you squeeze these clamps and kind of wiggle it off. They're a pain sometimes, like that. This has a seal on it, and that actually looks like it has to insert into this box. So I'm also going to lubricate this seal. Can't go in dry. One note about this that I noticed as I was going in, the seal actually at one point had pinched out. So if you don't go in there exactly evenly, it will pull out of one side. So I had to pull it back, get the seal settled in the center, and then push evenly across to get it to pop in. But it's all good now. Now we're going to take off this intake duct. So there's a T20 screw right there. Just zing it out like that. There's another one over here. We're going to zing that one out like that. We're going to pop this hose out of here. You have a tab on this side here, and you also have one on the other side over here. You can kind of just push down on this, and it'll pop out of that tab area over here. Slides out like so, and you do the same there. And we're out. If you take this off, you might not know what kind of oil to use, so hang on to that. Also, this is the intake duct, and if you look, this guy has a flappy guy that I can see you through. Hello. But this side, as you can see, is blocked. No air sucky right here. Air only sucky over here. What you'll notice about this one, 2-hole sucky. Twice the sucking power is what I'm saying. It sucks twice as hard as the other one. Go like so. Something to be aware of, this is a coolant hose and this is a coolant nipple right here. If you're not careful, you snap that one right off, so just don't do that. They also sell coolant hoses to make things they go over, not under, but we're not doing one of those because we're dumb. I am struggling, that's clearly the case. I'm gonna take this off. I'm taking this off. I'll orient this later. Without that there, it's no problem. There you go. It is a little of a snug fit. So you remember when I told you to put this on and make sure it's oriented correctly before? Well, I couldn't get the intake on with it like that, so we're putting it on now. So it's actually not that hard to do. There's a hole in the front area here that you can get to, and I'm just gonna kind of lift it up, and I'm looking at it from the bottom. I started from the bottom, now we're here. There we go. Now we take a look at this grommet right here and this grommet over here. You can watch as I push down, you'll see it kind of pop on, just like that. And same thing over here, just like that. Now we have our lid here, but we're not ready for our lid to go on yet because we have to start with the filter. Now to install that, super easy. Just slide that into your hose. I did have to loosen this clamp a little bit because it was giving me a hard time, but we're now in this channel. So you should be able to look down and see this thing sitting properly in there. Just keep in mind, if you don't have it in this track, it's not going to seal against the housing properly. You'll be sucking in dirt from your engine bay if you do that, so don't screw that up. Now, I know we've just teleported to a new location, and that is because I am dumb, and I do a poor job of planning, and so what I did forget is that this intake does not have holes for secondary air, but this car, being a Mark 8 GTI and not a Golf R, has secondary air. So we need a hole saw. So we had to go to the Home Depot and purchase us a hole saw to make a hole. Also, this is like the kind of packaging that is like Fort Knox. You have to cut it apart and then also risk injury while you're doing it. Whatever happened to the days you would just like pop open a package and then it would just like come out and you could take the item out. Instead,
that was before criminals existed.
I mean, I guess criminality is a new concept, I guess, apparently. You're gonna need another hole saw to get it out of the hole saw packaging. What I found a good tip for opening these is get them in a vise, get it clamped down, and then just fastest way to do it. Still not going to be easy to open after all that bullshit.
Smells like burnt.
It does smell like burnt plastic out here. Look at that. So this is what we're actually going to be installing, and we have to cut a hole in the side of the airbox to make that happen. Secondary air on GTIs is going to be on this side of the airbox right here, and so that's where we're going to cut our hole. They include these instructions. They allow you to have a template that we're going to cut out right now. You probably have some kids' scissors that you can steal from arts and crafts, but I'm not at my house, so I can't steal my kids' scissors. We're just going to tape this on. It doesn't really require it to be super like tight or anything. Honestly, I just want it so it's not going to fly all over the place while we're trying to work. I am using a centering punch. It's a spring-loaded guy that will make a mark. So we're going to put that right in the center of our hole. So as you can see, there's our center mark right there, and we're going to mark the other holes. This is a 1 3/4 inch hole saw. The instructions call for a 40 millimeter. This is the United States of America, and that doesn't exist here. We measure in freedom units. You can go 1.5 inches, which is gonna be a little too small. 1 3/4, it's gonna be a little too big. No such thing as too big. I am gonna put a piece of wood underneath of this.
Drill your hand.
So I don't drill my hand, that's why I have the wood. We're out here. So that's really how a hole saw should work. And you make a mess everywhere. The guys in the shipping area are gonna be real thrilled with me about this. This hole is kind of yucky looking. It's a little poopy. And so we are just gonna clean it up with a razor blade, and I might file it a little bit too. I cleaned up my hole. I will say, I would advise, I did punch these holes open just to verify that nothing moved and that all of the marks that I have still line up appropriately. So they do. So we're drilling away. So this is just gonna go in here like so. I had to do a little bit of wallering on my holes just because the drill bit moved on me while I was drilling. I suspect the same is gonna happen to you. Don't waller too hard because you could waller yourself right out of a hole. So be careful with that. Because look at that gap you got there. The gap's going to be there no matter what, but you could go with a smaller one, and I think you'll be okay. So I'm just snugging these up. Do not over tighten these. They don't need to be that tight. And just to be clear, this secondary airport, if you have a GTI, you have to buy this separately from Mark 8 Intake. If you have a Golf R, you do not need this at all. Not even a little bit. You don't have secondary air. Secondary air. Okay, we're back again. We are back at it again with this top cover. How long to install an intake? A really long time. That's how long. Again, back to the hose situation. Be careful. You can snap that nipple off and then you'll really have a bad day. I'll link to that coupler in the description just in case you snap yours off, and you can buy one on our website, shopdap.com, if you're not familiar. The rest of it is just these Torx guys. So,
way to do the worst one on camera first.
Okay. Now we're gonna show you one you can actually see. The only one that's a challenge is actually this one, because you can't see the hole super well of where it's lining up. So the first time I went in with this before, it kind of didn't line up perfectly because it was not in the right spot. This one was too far in already, so I had to go out and then back in. And if you're using an impact like me, be real careful, because you strip out this airbox, the threads are part of the housing. So you're stripping out the housing. Okay. Last screws we got to tighten are here and on the other side there. They line up a little bit wonky, so I'm just gonna get this guy kind of pulled over like that, get that one kind of in place, and I'm gonna make sure this one's gonna go in place too. And then you can see kind of everything kind of pulls up while I'm doing that. Last thing we have to do to tighten is this clamp. This goes to the filter. So what you gotta do is slide it on this side. Again, this is on the side of the filter. Tight fit. Sometimes that nub is a little too big for this hole. So what you gotta do in that situation, or at least what I hear, you just gotta push harder. And the other side goes right here on the intake manifold. That's more appropriate sized. Lastly, pop this guy on. You should be able to, oh yeah, do you hear that? Beautiful click.
We're not done.
What do you mean we're not done?
There's one more thing.
What else we gotta do? Oh, ooh, good point, good point. Ready? And the last thing, be very quiet. Yes. Oh, yes. Now that we got our intake installed, let's go on a test drive. Best place you can hear the intake is on acceleration. Well, you'll hear it more kind of as we're in a higher gear than we should be, and you can kind of listen. Hear a lot more DV noise. I suspect if you were to compare a closed intake versus an open intake, a closed one's gonna give you less noise than an open one, but you still get a pretty significant difference, especially you hear more DV noise, you hear more of the sucking and a little more turbo noise. That's what you gotta do when you drive a turbo car. Now, even though you don't have a blow-off valve yet, which we're gonna have to get one, you can still get the semi blow-off valve. Thanks so much for watching. Again, we have our giveaway. Make sure you take a part in that. And only official comments from us are actually gonna be legitimate. Don't get scammed. If you didn't win, buy one from us. Make sure you do that. If you have a GTI, remember you have to buy the secondary air filter. If you don't have a GTI, if you have a Golf R on a Mark 8, you will not need that secondary air filter. And that's our video. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to give a thumbs up and subscribe for more like it. The bell stuff too.